Hi, and welcome to Nothing Ventured, Nothing Game. I'm your host with the most, your GM Jared, and today I'm going to be talking with a close and good friend of mine who went to college with me, continued on, and became a lawyer, and we're going to talk about what Wizards of the Coast D&D has put out on their OGL, SRD, and the One D&D on their D&D Beyond article.
Hi, this is the God Emperor Steve, here to bring you a slight disclaimer. In this video, we are talking about opinions and general information about law. None of this is to be considered any actual legal advice. And in addition, laws can vary from state to state. So then, again, this is opinion. This is just general talking. None of this is actual legal advice that you should take from us. And now, back to the video.
So this is, again, this article, they've already announced that this is what they're going to start to work with, but version 1.1 of this current open game license, or the OGL, hasn't even been enacted yet. So this is kind of a reaction to the reaction we as the community had when we found out about the rumors of what's going on with the new open game license. So my friend Lotso is going to kind of break things down. We're going to take it step by step. And again, the version, this isn't out yet. So this is just kind of their interpretation as being a contract lawyer, kind of like how it interacts with us, the community, the creators, and kind of like what they feel this is what it's saying. Again, until the full version is out, this is their best guess or best understanding of what is written. Now, again, there are a few words that you're going to hear. SRD. The SRD is, if you don't know what the SRD meaning is, it's the SRD stands for System Reference Document, and SRD is a free resource for players that offer guidelines for game designers to look up what's allowed in the published system. So if you realized why there hasn't been a lot of stuff on D&D Beyond from homebrew creators for the Artificer, it's because of this situation. The Artificer didn't really fall under the existing OGL and SRD, and that's why there hasn't been a lot coming out. Now, with that being said, in this article, they do reference to the fact that they are working with a number of virtual tabletops, and they've already established connections there, right? So I don't think this will be affecting companies such as Critical Role. We do know Critical Role works very closely. They've released books under Wizards of the Coast already for 5th edition. So I wouldn't even consider Critical Role being affected by this new OGL and SRD situation with D&D 1. I feel like if the company is still moving forward, they've already established what's going on there long before this property has happened. So this isn't me saying like I have a secret insight on Critical Role and what's going on there. I just feel the way I've seen how Critical Role works, and this is me, again, not bashing Critical Role. This is just me saying from the way I understand their relationship with Wizards and Wizards of the Coast, I wouldn't think Critical Role has an issue with this. Not that they're for what's happening or against, just they probably already built a contract with Wizards of the Coast. So, like I said, I would like to introduce everyone to my good friend, my fraternity brother, Lotso, the huggable bear who went to college and did the right thing and became a lawyer. How are you doing today, Lotso?
I'm great, Jared, and thanks for having me on. The first things first, I just want to mention everything I say here is not legal advice. I did go to law school, but intellectual property is not my forte. But just reading about it is actually a really interesting experience, and I would love to go through this experience with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lotso. So first step, they've organized this in a number of points. There's only really 2 points. One will one D&D include an SRD. Again, SRD stands for that system reference design. So first, we'll include an SRD covered by the OGL. So the OGL stands for Open Game License, and SRD allows people to create stuff in that system, right?
Mhm.
So, as I understand it, so first we're designing one D&D with 5th edition backwards compatibility. So Lotso, basically, one D&D is the newest edition for Dungeons and Dragons. So they're remember when Xbox 360 came out, and then Xbox One came out, they said, oh, Xbox One is backwards compatible. That's what they're saying here. They're saying if you're playing D&D 1, it should be backwards compatible with 5th edition. So all existing creator content that is compatible with 5th edition will also be compatible with one D&D or the newest edition. Second, we will update the SRD for one D&D as we develop it. Development that is informed by the results of playtests that we are conducting with hundreds of thousands of players currently. So I feel like this is me talking to Lotso as a reader, as a layman, right? Like as a lay person who doesn't really understand legal jargon or what's being said. I would read this and say, basically, it sounds to me that everything that has been created is already protected by the SRD, and then stuff moving forward from the inception of this in early 2023 would now fall under this new open game license.
Basically, from what my understanding with it, anything with the 5th edition is fine. They're not going to make any changes to that. The language itself doesn't sound very concrete, so it doesn't really sound like they actually know what their plans are for this new version. The thing with content creation, right? It's not exactly because you're creating something derivative of their product. First of all, they want you to, right? They're giving you a license to create new content using their product. I don't think they're saying that things are going to change moving forward, but they might change the rules to the game, but they won't change anything legally. Whereas you can't do certain things because they can't really enforce that. That's the main thing. Their biggest concern right now is to change the market, right? With the cryptocurrency world, with blockchain, specifically with NFTs, they're afraid of their core content being used for material gain, which it's a little unfair if you really think about it. If you're thinking of it in a logical standpoint, you created this one character that's in your book that is one of the concrete set of rules that you created. They don't want that to be recreated and then sold for profit, right? But if you have a character that you made up yourself using the ideas they gave you, they want you to keep continuing to do that. First of all, they can't really regulate how you want to play a game. We make up games all the time, but they just want to make sure that they want to keep the rules of certain things that they are. They want you to play by a certain set of rules that they have already drafted, and that's so they don't recreate the same thing and think it's a new thing.
Okay, so doesn't sound too bad. Sounds like a positive, like not like just kind of a neutral, non-change. Nothing's really changing in that situation.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Neutral is never bad. It's good. Okay, so it is right. Like so there's a positive and negative, and there's also the neutral change, and neutral is not. It's neutral.
Yes.
As we learned with Zap Brannigan, when did you become neutral? That's Futurama references. Gotta have them. So, number two in this, these 2 points that they bring up, is kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole situation, right? And you've kind of mentioned this before, but I'll kind of read everything over so the listeners understand what we're talking about. So number 2 states, will the OGL terms change? Yes, we will release a version 1.1 of the new OGL in early 2023. The OGL needs to update to ensure that it keeps doing what it was intended to do, allowing the D&D communities, independent creators to build and play and grow the game we all love without allowing things like third parties to mint D&D NFTs and large businesses to exploit our intellectual properties. So what are they planning on changing is kind of like what I feel. And then they say, firstly, we're making sure the OGL 1.1 is clear about what is covered and what it doesn't. OGL 1.1 makes clear it only covers material created for use in or as tabletop role-playing games, so TTRPGs. And those materials are only ever permitted as printed media or static electronic files, like EPUBs and PDFs. Other types of content like videos, video games are only possible through the Wizards of the Coast fan content policy or a custom agreement with us. To clarify, outside of printed media and static electronic files, the OGL does not cover it. Will this affect D&D content and services players use today? It shouldn't. The top virtual tabletops, so VTTs, platforms already have custom agreements with Wizards to do what they do. D&D merchandise like minis and novels were never intended to be part of the OGL, and OGL 1.1 won't change that. Creators wishing to leverage D&D for those forms of expression will need, as always, to have the custom agreements between us. Okay, so we can continue to the second half of this. So second, we're updating the OGL to offer different terms to creators who choose to make free share alike content and creators who want to sell products. What does that mean for you as a creator? If you're making share alike content, very little is going to change from what you've already used to. If you're making commercial content, relatively little is going to change for most creators. For most of you who are selling custom content, here are the new things. 1, you will have to accept license and terms letting us know what you offer for sale. Report open game license revenue, related revenue annually if you make more than $50K in a year. Finally, include a creative product badge on your work, so like a stamp. When we roll out OGL 1.1, we will also provide example explanatory videos, FAQs, and web portals for registration to make navigating these requests as easy and intuitive as possible. We'll also have help available to creators to navigate the new processes. For fewer than 20 creators worldwide who make more than $750,000, no, 750K, yeah. So almost $1 million in income a year, you will add a royalty starting in 2024. So even for the creators making significant money selling D&D supplements and games, no royalties will be due for 2023, and all revenue below 750K in the future will be royalty free. In future, wait, what? Oh, okay. Bottom line, the OGL is not going away. You will still be able to create D&D content, publish it anywhere, and followers in all ways that make the community so great. The thousands of created publishing, of course, Kickstarter, DMs Guild, and the more are a critical part of D&D experience and will continue to support and encourage, for years to come. Blah, 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 blah. So, for me, the first half of this kind of sounded like you pointed out, like the media is changing. So they said like, hey, we don't want to, like, they brought up NFTs, which I thought was weird personally, but I feel like that's a different conversation, right? Like that's a crypto conversation. But like you said earlier, like they don't want people taking their intellectual properties and using it for financial gains, such as putting up like shirts that say like, like now we have a lot of shirts because of Stranger Things that say like Vecna on it and stuff like that. I don't think those people are paying Wizard of the Coast money. Like that's the
Uh,
way.
yeah, that's really where this is coming. This is why they send out this release.
Mhm.
There's a lot of different content that is like, based on my work experience right now, the digital market is really changing, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I don't want to talk too much into detail of that. It's a little sidetrack, but picture Niantic with Pokemon Go. Picture that with cryptocurrency and NFTs. The
Mhm.
world is really changing in a space, and I can really see how Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards in general can really incorporate that to their game, right? And they're basically saying that if you're going to be incorporating like certain characters, right, or certain play arenas that they came up with, this is the kind of stuff that they should be paying royalties for, right? So this is why when you read about for fewer than 20 creators who make more than $750,000, you know that's the root of what Wizards does, right? They give you a platform to, uh, at least to my understanding, how the game works. I don't I don't play very often, so I don't really know too much about it. But the idea is that they give you a platform, they give you a quasi world to work with, and then you fill in that world to make it your own, to make it a game that way. Uh, Wizards doesn't want you to create an identical world or a world similar to that and then not get paid for it because this was their original idea, and that's why uh, that's why they started talking about the royalties and stuff like that. The game itself is not going to change the way you play it normally. You might change the rules of the game, but nothing of legal concern. um, they only want to make sure that if there's certain characters that they really are adamant about that really flows into the game, or a certain map that really flows into the game, or things of that sort, that they're protected, that what, if you're going to be using my idea, I want to get paid for it. That's the general idea, and that's why they put one, accept license terms, report OGL, and then include created content. Just to prove that what I'm creating, but I'm creating content that is that I'm deriving it off the core principle of the game.
Mhm. Uh, in the second half, they talk about the like accepting license terms and reporting revenue if you make more than 50K a year. Now, obviously, we don't know if that's the full company or just what you're making on D&D, right? Like that's the way I would read that. Like if my company sells sneakers and we have like I don't know, something D&D related, but we only sell 2 D&D sneakers, right? I don't need to report my whole company as the way I see it, as the way I'm reading
Oh
that.
yeah, they're not. They don't want you to report all that revenue. They want to report on things related to their content. And to what you're saying, like they honestly, they can't force you to report everything about your company if it has nothing related to them, right? It has to be it has to somewhat relate to Wizards products. You can't just say I own this sneaker company, and I mean, unless you're publicly traded, which that's that's beside the point, right? Let's say you're a private company and you make all these shoes, but I make one specific shoe that are involved with your products, with Magic, with D&D, with all these other things that Wizards create. That's the only stuff that there's a relationship there. You can't. They're making something that has nothing to do with that. They have no right to know about it.
Okay, so that clarifies a few things. Like myself as a channel, as a YouTube creator, I was a little concerned. I was like, can they come and ask for all of Nothing Venture, Nothing Games revenue? Not that we make 50K a year. God help us if we made 50K. This studio would be much nicer. But my concern was, hey, if I do a video on like I'm doing right now on this Dungeons and Dragons thing, could Wizards declare that I have to give them my company's revenue stream.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. The only time it would really matter is for some reason you are getting sponsored by them, which would be awesome.
Yep.
Or otherwise, like if you're, I was also reading the fan content policy, right? Which this is kind of related into. If you get sponsors for Dice, or if you get sponsors for, uh, unless that map is Wizards property or what Wizards directly created,
Mhm.
you don't need to report that. If it's just like things that are supplemental, I think that's the best word to say it. If it's not exactly a a direct relationship to Wizards, then you don't really have to worry about that.
Yeah. And now I think this is kind of like the biggest concern for everyone, especially from my perspective as a streamer. If I'm streaming Dungeons and Dragons, do they have the right to turn off my stream with this new OGL concept?
That's a bit of a gray area. It depends on what you're trying to stream, right? If you're just talking about it, but they look at the way they look at it is what is the actual purpose? Like if you're just streaming for content to just talk about uh, tabletop RPGs in general, then they can't really do that, right? But if you're specifically uh, if you read, let's say for example, I know D&D has a lot of these books, right? And
Yeah.
you legitimately read the book to your audience,
Verbatim, like word for word.
yeah, or then you're kind of like, well, you're giving the content to people that I that Wizards themselves are creating for monetary gain, but then you yourself are doing the same thing using their exact product, right? So that it when it comes to content, it's not a finite uh, it's not a finite concept. But honestly, just I know people say common sense isn't very common anymore, but I'm gonna say use your common sense, right? If it sounds like if you are legitimately just taking someone's product and your whole model is to take someone's product and make money off of it, that's not cool. I think, and sometimes when it comes to the law, it really just comes down to whether or not something is fair, and you just gotta
Mhm.
think about it in someone else's shoes to figure out if something is correct. If you made your character yourself, right? That you
Mhm.
came up with, like you made a mage, right? And he wears like pirate shoes
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
You're using common concepts and you're placing it within their realm, but their whole license is that you're allowed to use their realm, right?
Yeah.
And that if you're talking about that, then they won't be they won't be shutting down your screens. They won't be sending you legal notices because you're abiding by the rules that first of all they set out, but
Mhm.
also just in sheer fairness, right? They want the company itself wants you to keep playing their product, and they want you to keep streaming their product. It is free. It is advertising in a way, right? If you as you keep talking about them, they're getting more awareness. But they
Yeah.
don't want you to specifically to just throw their characters and then like throw their characters on a screen and then that's how you then you're going too far.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So as I understand it, as the way you're explaining it to me, again, as a person who doesn't understand a lot of this legal stuff, it kind of seems like not much is really changing from what they've given us, right? There's this bare bones example of what they're talking about. And it more or less sounds like, hey, if you're making 50K a year, you're probably gonna have to speak with Wizards of the Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like they've already established, like, so because there are companies out there that do very well for themselves, that make D&D related content where it's like supplements to their games. One large one, they're known as Cobalt Press. They're like the largest print, like third party creator for Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think Cobalt Press is going anywhere. I think Cobalt Press will probably has at least one lawyer, because if I could find a lawyer friend, they probably as a company have a lawyer, right?
Yes.
Who has already started the contractual work with Wizards of the Coast. And if I am a creator, but my creations, if I'm an independent creator, let's say someone like myself, right, like who just made an LLC and wanted to publish something, I don't think this really affects us as creators, because we're not making that kind of exorbitant amount of money. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, I don't think that's a good analogy. Just because you don't make that much money, but you are still profiting off of it. Sometimes the system goes, what's the amount of money they could make? Let's say, for example, you create a product that is, you know, just like you were saying before, right? You made like a supplement to this D&D book, and it tells you how to play the game better or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I remember when we were kids, we had those like Nintendo Power books, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if Nintendo actually wrote Nintendo Power, but let's just say a different company did it, right? I don't actually know. I don't remember. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But let's say, for example, a different company made Nintendo Power. Nintendo would be pretty upset that you are profiting off of their game, and you're basically telling them how everything works, right?
Yeah.
And then you're also using their logos, right? That goes with go to fan content policies. If you're using their logos, that's also you know, people work on those logos. People get paid salaries. People get paid royalties to make those logos, and you're just ripping it off people. That's also not cool, right?
Yeah.
So when you say that it's because someone makes more than 50K a year, they kind of set that as a guidance, not as a rule,
Not a hard line
finite
rule. Yeah.
Yeah, if you made like $1,000 or a couple $100, they can still go after you if you are legitimately ripping off their product. You know, I remember in the early 2000s and 90s, and we used Napster and stuff like that, and you legitimately took their whole song, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you didn't make any money off of it, but you know, you still gave a product for free. So they're thinking in their heads, what would be the money I could have made off of this, and that you basically stole from me.
Got it.
So I don't. The 50K a year. You should not be focusing on that. You should still be aware of how you're using their content.
So is there anything you wanted to talk about on this on this, as like someone looking at it from a outside perspective? Like, what are some of the things you feel we should be aware of moving forward with D&D 1?
I don't know much about D&D 1 itself. What I would say is that, you know, keep doing, if you're doing everything right beforehand, keep doing what you're doing. It's not going to be it's not going to be that big of a deal as long as you're not directly taking characters that Wizards created, or directly taking maps away that Wizards created, or, you know, taking lore away from what Wizards created. That's the kind of stuff that they care about the most. When it comes to the way you're playing, you know, as you're streaming, as you're coming up with new characters, they want you to keep doing that. And, you know, just make sure, you know, if you go to the fan content policy, they specifically say, you know what, let the community know this is not official content. I'm not going to be using, you know, their logos, their emblems. You know, there's a lot of different things. You know, don't be using their symbols and stuff like that. And just reemphasizing, use common sense, right? If the tables have turned, and you as yourself as a content creator whether you're a YouTuber or even as a game master, as a DM, as a GM, right? You wouldn't want it. It wouldn't be cool to just take someone else's content because they spend time writing these stories, uh, coming up with these elaborate scenarios, right? And that's basically the idea of uh, intellectual property. Just be fair. It's all about fairness, and sometimes you got to be empathetic and think about the other person in the other shoe.
I agree with you on that. Thinking about the other writers and creators, right? Because I think sometimes it's hard when you're looking at the megacorp, right? And then being like, yes, I must feel bad for this multi-million-dollar industry, right? Like that's the thing. But you're not the way I see it is you're saying like, hey man, like someone else kind of created this, and it wasn't like the megacorp, it was like a writer or a creator themselves.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's why when I feel like when you're speaking about empathy, you're like empathize with the actual human who did this and not the super mega evil corporation, right?
Yes, that's what I meant. You know, if people, even though they're getting paid, they have a salary, they still took time and used their brains, their hearts to come up with something that people like, right? And that's why we're part. Like, I'm not talking about the entity themselves. I'm talking about the individuals. Think of it in those people's shoes. That you know what, because you're taking their product, you can cost them their job because of it.
Also, I have a question. If I were to get a D&D tattoo of the D&D logo, could Wizards of the Coast come after me legally?
If you put it on screen, yes, absolutely.
Good to know. So nothing on my forehead.
Nothing on your forehead. If you have a tank top on and you have a logo on your arm, they can sue you directly. I'm actually a big wrestling fan, and one of the biggest problems right now is one of the wrestlers. His name is Randy Orton. He had a tattoo from a tattoo artist. He put that tattoo in video games. I mean, he can't really do anything because when you on a TV screen, there's nothing you can really do. But that tattoo was in a video game, right? And the artist got really upset. You know, they didn't. The 2K did not pay them royalties for that tattoo. You know, artists, and it's a legal battle. It's a legitimate legal battle. You're taking someone else's work and you're using it as your own, basically in a video game.
Oh snap! I was joking and they were serious. Wow.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. So I guess, yeah, no face tattoos of like D&D logos, or like at least change it up. That's like kind of like what I'm taking away from this OGL license is no face tattoo, which I think is the best takeaway from all of this.
Well, I mean, you can get a face tattoo, you know, but do something, you know, first of all, make sure you respect the artist who did the tattoo. And then also, you can get face tattoos of things that are common use, right? You can do a goblin, right? You can do little things. Just don't be putting logos on your face.
Oh.
Like goblins are common things, right?
Yeah.
You know, like assassins are common things, or you know, like knights are common things. These are very common things that you as a regular person know about that isn't owned by somebody.
Yeah.
But if you put like a specific wizard, like like that, then it's a problem. It's a problem, especially if you're using it for monetary gain. Maybe the way Wizards is thinking about it is, hey, the reason why he's getting so many views is because of that tattoo. You know, and now I got to get a cut of that money.
So they won't they'll just ask for money. They won't come to my house with like a cheese grater, try to like shave it off my head.
No, they probably just send you a bunch of letters. They might send a guy over with a lot of papers that you have to deal with.
Oh, that's upsetting. That's actually the worst case. That's actually the worst than the cheese grater for me.
Yeah.
but with all that being said, I want to say thank you very much, Lotso, for coming out and joining me this today, and joining everyone in the community to just kind of talk about this and give your opinion, because this is completely just an opinion and not advice on what's going on here. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
And yeah, if more of this legal stuff, it's gonna, as it keeps coming up, we'll keep covering it, and obviously I'll have Lotso back on, and maybe next time I'll actually have like a moving 3D image of Lotso. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone hanging out and listening to this. Hopefully this was cleared up a little bit. Again, thank you very much to Lotso.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. And again, thank you very much to everyone watching. And like I said, as more of this stuff keeps breaking, we'll keep talking about it, and I'll have Lotso come on some more. So if you can, please do the thing, like and subscribe, and yeah, keep it classy out there.